Hello everyone, my name is Sophie and I'm here today to talk to you about Bitcoin and leadership. For centuries throughout the human history, we have waited for kings and queens and governments and the heroes from our childhood stories to come to rescue us. For centuries, we have traded our freedom, our dignity, our ownership, and sovereignty for the promise of safety. And only a few realize that that safety is an illusion. People like Satoshi, people like Mansour Halaj, who have given their life or identity and had to hide to move the needle forward for freedom and giving us back the power to be the leaders of our own destiny. So what that means is that now we have the power thanks to Bitcoin, and for that paradigm shift, we are better for it. Bitcoin not only enables us to have that power back, but gives us also the tools, the processes, and the mindset to be the leader of our own lives. So today, as I mentioned before, I want to tell you what got you here can get you there. What made you a Bitcoiner can also make you a better leader. So, let's talk a little bit more about the idea of the process that I'm going to talk to you about. The process is inspired by me working in a corporate setting, managing large engineering teams and being frustrated with the bureaucracy, and then also getting my PhD in organizational leadership, and at the same time, becoming a Bitcoiner. So the triangulation of these three factors made me wonder if they have something in common. So, what they have in common is the process that I'm going to tell you more about today. There are 4 stages to the process that is very much inspired by the Bitcoin rabbit hole. This process can make you a Bitcoiner and also can make you a better leader. The first step is this orienting dilemma. What that is that most of us get disappointed or dissatisfied or disconnected from the status quo because of the government, because of the centralized powers, and that initiates the process of us processing our pain into reflecting on what we are and what we want from life. That is when we ask questions like, what is power? What is leadership? What is energy, in the words of Michael Saylor? And those questions lead to us learning more and experimenting and exploring ideas like Bitcoin. We watch most Bitcoiners go through the phase of learning so much about Bitcoin through watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, reading white papers, and also using those ideas that we learned to either just buy Bitcoin and invest into this extraordinary technology, or go further and start organizations to become leaders, or just have wonderful conferences like this that encourage dialogue. Similarly, we can use the same process to unleash our leadership capability. So through my practice as a consultant working within the Bitcoin ecosystem, I've used this process to build teams and cultures and leaders that are more effective and more strategic. So one of the use cases I'm going to tell you about today was the problem of a leader who was challenged by the idea of thinking too tactically, meaning the leader had to put out a lot of fires every day. And therefore, they were just constantly working through everyday tasks and to-do lists and having no time for strategic thinking, thinking big and being creative. So for that reason, that kind of situation led to a kind of a pain that started their disorienting dilemma. In this case study, it actually led to them losing a lot of their star followers, contributors in the organization that moved to other organizations because they didn't feel like the culture can embrace their creativity. And the pain that the leader felt from that disorientation, from that process of losing all those people, led to them questioning their leadership and finding better ways to be more strategic. And with that came the stage of reflection, which was the moment of questioning, who am I as a leader? How can I be more effective in my organization, in my family, in my community? And also questioning the external factors of how do I play a role in the bigger economy? And then engaging in learning, understanding how a strategic thinking, in this case, would play into changing the organizational structure, changing the culture, changing the way that we empower one another, changing people into strategic agents of change. And the last step was to implement these changes. Meaning, in this case, they changed the organizational structure to be more decentralized, that allowed for the power and the energy to flow seamlessly, for the people to be empowered more, to think strategically, and to experiment systematically. So, this process that I have developed and tested over and over again can be applied for any challenge that you have. However, my gift to you is the studies that I've done and also working with the Bitcoin organizations in the ecosystem allowed me to understand 4 different characteristics that are the main components of what a leader needs to think about within the Bitcoin ecosystem to be more effective. Whether they want to lead an organization, a movement, a community, or even their family. Those are, 1, leaders need to think about ways to be more anti-fragile. Anti-fragility is the idea of not only learning from one's failure, but thriving from it by becoming more resilient as a result of the pain we experience and from the challenges that we encounter as a part of our leadership journey. The second thing is critical thinking. Most often, Bitcoin leaders are critical thinkers when it comes to technological advances. They're great at experimentation. They're wonderful at solving problems, but they cannot take that critical thinking to the space of their leadership and management. One thing that can really help people in that is the idea of asking the right questions. Believe me, this is simple, but it really revolutionized the way people manage and lead teams when they learn how to ask the right questions. One book that I highly recommend is the book by Dr. Edgar Schein, Humble Inquiry, that helps a lot with asking the right questions. The other thing is ever learning. While Bitcoiners are learners, they don't have the right systems in place most often in their organizations that allow for learning and development to take place. They also don't have a way to encourage the kind of culture that systematically allows people to develop themselves. Conferences like this are beautiful, amazing beginnings for learning and collaborating, but we need the right reward systems, learning systems, and incentives to continuously make people to want to learn more. Additionally, it is very important to be mission-driven. While we are united under the mission of Bitcoin, what we learned from Bitcoin, we need to apply in other parts of our life. Decentralization, entrepreneurship, transformational leadership. These are the ideas that one can actually apply to everywhere of their life. So I am lucky personally to be married to the guy that was up here, the German dude, Dr. Wolfgang Laer, Students for Liberty, whose mission is to advocate for liberty, ownership, and Bitcoin all around the world. But it is very also important for every single one of us to find the right community, find the right friend to remind us every day how important it is to focus on the mission of Bitcoin. With that, I want to end this by saying that we don't need governments, we don't need the superheroes of our childhood. We need ourselves, and we can trust ourselves to be better leaders for Bitcoin, the kind of leaders that Bitcoin deserves.